Hello everyone, welcome to the new video of Azure Logic Apps integration. So in today's video, we will be integrating Dynamics 365 with Salesforce using Azure Logic Apps with the same event management application example which we used earlier. So the requirement is whenever user registers for an event in Dynamics 365 and event domain is Salesforce, automatically an attendee record will be created in Salesforce and then registration status will be updated as successful in Dynamics. So let's dive into Dynamics to see the working of this example. All right. So we are into event management application where we have events and registration. So we have an event of Salesforce where event domain is Salesforce. So we will be focusing on event and registration table as a part of this video. So for registration record, whenever I will create a registration for a Salesforce event, what will happen is attendee record will be created in a Salesforce application. So I have already created an event management app in a Salesforce application. So whenever I create a registration record in Dynamics, attendee record will be created here if the domain is Salesforce. Right? So we will be implementing this using Azure Logic Apps. So we'll log in into portal.azure.com. Once logged in, these are the Azure services provided by Microsoft Azure. To start with, we have to first create a resource group. Resource group is basically a container storing Azure services, right? Okay, let me create a resource group. Here I have to select subscription. By default is Azure subscription 1. Then resource group name. Let me add event management application. And let me choose Central India. Okay. Now I'll click on review and create and then click on create button. So now it will create a resource group. So let me go to resource group which is created. Okay. So now we will be creating logic app under this resource group. Okay. To do that, click on create button here. Search for logic app. If you see, I can see a logic app tile here. Let me click on create. So I'll be selecting this multi-tenant consumption plan. And then for the same subscription, this logic app will be created under resource group of event management application, which we created earlier. So let me put the name for the app, event registration. I'll select the region and click on review and create. Okay. Now click on create button. So it will create a logic app under that resource group. So if you see deployment is completed, so Azure Logic App is created. So the app name is Event Registration App. Let me open that. Okay, so these are the app details. What subscription is, which location it comes under, what is the subscription ID, right? Then we have run history here, which tells us about the runs for this particular logic app. Okay, so now let's get started with creating and implementing the logic. Click on edit. So the UI is similar to Power Automate one. Okay, so the first one is add a trigger. Since we are creating a registration record in Dynamics, we will be selecting a Dataverse trigger for this step. So let me select add a row in Dataverse. And the row is added, right? So to create, I mean to add the step, we need to add a connection, right? So authentication is selected OAuth, where I'll be signing in to log in with the Dynamics 365 credentials. Okay, so the connection is completed. Now, this step talks about when a registration record is created. So let me rename it. Right. Select the environment. So I'll select future dev table name. I'm looking for registration. Change type is added. Scope will be organization. Right. Okay. Now the registration record step is added. Now the next step is, right, once the registration record is created, we will be checking if the event domain is a Salesforce, right? So to get the details of event domain from the registration record, we need to use a get a row by ID to get the event details from the registration record. So gonna add an action, get a row by ID. Right, so let me rename it to get event details. Same environment. Table name is events row ID. So the event information we already have in the registration record. So we will be updating it with the dynamic parameter. Okay. We got the event details. Now the next step is, if the event is Salesforce, then we will be creating an attendee record in Salesforce application. So here we need to add a condition, control condition, right? If event domain equals to source. Now we will be selecting the event domain, right? So event domain, we will get it from this event details. Select no domain, okay, is equal to. So event domain is a choice field, so we need to compare it with the option set value. So I already have a value here. Okay, now event domain is Salesforce. Then if event domain is Salesforce, we will be creating a record in Salesforce. So let me click on this add an action, create. So let me search for Salesforce. If you see, we have a trigger here called as create record. Click here. Now, so since we are creating a record in Salesforce, we need a connection inside Salesforce as well. So let me select connection names, log in with Salesforce account, your production, click on sign in. So it will create a connection of Salesforce here. Okay, so now record is text step is added. Let me rename it to create attend record. Okay, now if you see Salesforce object type, so in Dynamics, the table name is mentioned as table or entity, but in Salesforce, tables are called as object. So we will select object as attendees, then show advanced parameter. Okay, so we have attendee name. So we will dynamically update this from the registration record. So name, um, email, right? We have contact number, and attendee status is registered. Okay. Now the final step is after attendee record is created in Salesforce, we will be updating the registration status as successful in Dynamics. So here the next step would be add an action and dataverse, update row, right? Let me rename it to update registration status. Environment will be selecting future dev. Table name is registration. Row ID can be added from the registration record which was created. So unique identifier of registration record. Right. Then what we will be doing is we will be updating the registration record status as successful. So here we'll be selecting successful. Okay. So let's revise it. When registration record is created, get the event information, and if event domain is Salesforce, create an attendee record in Salesforce and then update registration status to successful in Dynamics. All right, let's save this. Okay, now let's trigger. Event will be Salesforce online. Okay, so let me save it. Okay, so now the record is saved. Okay, now let me go to Salesforce application and refresh it. If you see, an attendee record of Tony Stark is created here, and all the information came from Dynamics to Salesforce. Okay, now let's validate the registration status in Dynamics. So if I go to registration and then open Tony Stark, the registration status here is showing successful. Okay, so yeah, so in this way we were able to integrate Dynamics 365 with Salesforce application using Azure Logic Apps. All right, thank you. See you in the next video.